Terrence Crawford and Bo Mack making the rounds for the media. It's much needed for this fight. The promotion hasn't really been that good. They've been releasing promotional material like images and things like that, but there's not really been too much. A lot of people, they got a boost of confidence, I guess. It was a morale boost when they found out that Canelo was sparring Jaron in his boots. But, for those who follow this channel, and how a lot of people are starting to see just how Boots is. And I don't put too much stock in Boots. I was trying to tell people back in the day the Madrimov fight was, a harder fight for Crawford than Jaron in his boots. And I was priming and getting ready to do the same process we done during this fight. During the lead up, I was ready to make the film studies and everything else, show you guys how he hasn't really grown much from the amateurs, you know what I'm saying? So I was already gearing up. I was wanting the Boots fight, but it is what it is, just so people could shut up and I can play this game again with everybody. But the most telling thing was Crawford's demeanor. He's not letting this moment get to him. He's very calm, collected, just like a professional hitman. He's not being moved by anything. He's not letting things irk him and whatever else. I do have to say this, though. This is one of my concerns. When Bud was fighting at the lower weight classes, he would always he would hate interviews. You know what I'm saying? He's all annoyed because he's, starving himself or whatever it is that he's doing. So his temperament would be a lot more, I don't know. He'd take everything personal. His best ones were with Max Kellerman because Max knows what was going to come. You know what I'm saying? But so far, he's cool. And like I said, he doesn't look worried at all. I've been telling you guys this for the longest time. It's all about mindsets. And I was just recently talking about this, with someone in the comment section. I think Bud did win and has the better case for the mental battle, and we could see this during the pressers. Now, I've shared some photographs and things like that on Canelo's face. There's been other channels that done this, like Bruce Vane, but just when he, Canelo did push Bud, he did run away, Skull did, when he was fighting Canelo. I haven't seen Canelo move that fast. And it took almost 2 minutes for him to meet back with Bud. Bud's reaction was immediately go straight for Canelo, and people were trying to hold him back and things like that. I think Canelo knows what time it is, and it's just like what I wrote on my post. He knows that this ain't a scripted fight, man. He knows this is a real fight. This isn't the boardroom where they get together and they plot out, how they can basically play with the masses and continue to, sell Canelo as this golden statue, keep his idol status, where it's at and whatever else, We'll fight Munguia, we'll fight Berlanga now, we'll skip Benavidez, we'll pull some stuff where Benavidez isn't a good fight. And guys like Munguia, Berlanga deserve the fights more. And, a lot of you diehard fans, you just go along with those type of narratives. It's the same with Gervonta Tank Davis, fans and whoever else, So I'm not trying to limit you guys that are Canelo fans. Every, boxer does that type of crap today. They move fighters pretty soft, in my opinion, today. They milk him too much. For example, Jaron in his boots. His resume needs a lot of upgrade, especially for being around 35 fights. I'm surprised they're not doing the Canelo route. Let's feed him like a Matthew Hatton type opponent at a catchweight. But you see, he needs his tune-ups and all that. And like I said, it was kind of getting desolate there for a minute. You Canelos needed that morale boost with Boots. You know what I'm saying? That really made you guys happy, And for me, that was my biggest problem. I like to see, the people, the opposing team, I like to see you guys in dread and that type of stuff. So I'm one of those types of guys. But, you guys were really happy with the fact that he sparred Boots. Now, again, as far as the rumors and whatever else, did Boots beat up Canelo? These stories have been circulating for the longest time. I forgot the sparring partner's name, and we talked about this on my live chat. Dude literally came out and said he was quitting during sparring and things like that. So, these stories, they've been trickling around for a while. He gets tired and whatever else. But as far as Crawford, he needs to not listen to that stuff. And again, when he was asked about drawing in his boots, he more so took it as a badge of honor and a token of respect, because, he said flat out, you're fighting the best fighter. You should be doing what you have to prepare for this fight. So again, him being the type of dude that he is, he's a competitor, things like that, for him, and he again, elaborated that, if I was this little guy who hasn't fought no one and whatever else, this kind of messes up the same storylines that, we typically hear with the Terrence Buck Crawford fight. But Crawford, again, he's a professional, he's a competitor, things like that. He's the guy, I know he's been working hard. I know he's been pushing himself and things like that. He is 38. It looks like they knew when to have fun in their training camp and when to turn up and work. And Crawford, he's always working. That's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't matter if he's really sitting out, especially being at his age right now. It's actually better instead of a Canelo, again, who was one of, if not the most active fighter in the past however many years. It was between him and Gervonta Tank Davis. Those were like the fighters that they really made stay active, especially during COVID and things like that. But you wasted like all this good training, all this prime time against guys, that you've been fighting. You could have took care of, in my opinion, Benavidez, but you made Benavidez a bigger problem than what he is. And then when you were trying to avoid Benavidez, you took a off dirt road that you shouldn't have took. And, although you think this is the easier challenge, it could still lead to the same outcome that you were fearing from Benavidez. You know what I'm saying? Crawford's not a guy to play around with, and it's the same with the Benavidez. I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona. We've always supported the Benavidez family here. You know what I'm saying? And he's hometown guy. I've been to the fights when they have him here or whatever else. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to support my guy. It's just that simple. But, he has that mindset too. He's not scared to tell people how it is about Canelo, about the doping. It's all about mindset. And this is what I've been trying to get to people. When I post a film study on, Meme Machine, that I did during the Porters and Spence, sagas, these things, they still translate today. And Canelo, again, I keep getting this, Canelo's going to knock him out. Well, that's great. That's probably what he needs to actually win this fight. Of course, I think the second highest probability for his victory would be corrupt judging. We've addressed this on this channel already. But what happens when power is not part of the plan? What happens when it's not a factor? And we covered this during the live chat as well. I've talked about Shea Mosley being a fish out of a barrel when his power's not a factor in the fight. He just gets boxed up and everything else. That Floyd fight was a pretty amazing first couple rounds, but this is what I'm saying. It's about mindset. When Shea Mosley landed those punches on Floyd Mayweather, you saw Floyd Mayweather, do what Nassim talked about, transform into a dragon and start spitting fireballs. You saw his level raising that, you know what I'm saying? And Bud, to me, he's one of those types of guys. Even if you do hurt this guy, you showed a propensity to where you can't finish guys off. And these are guys who are getting blown away by other fighters within like 5 rounds or whatever, and Canelo, again, you wasted all this prime opportunity to where you could have took care of guys like Benavidez before they even came a problem. If you're fighting these other dudes, like Ryder, who we were talking about during the live chat, things like that. I mean, man, you wasted precious time. And because you've been out here bum bashing and everything else, with Canelo's training camp, I get kind of a sense that they kind of know what time it is. I really do. They are having fun and things like that as well. I just saw another promotional video where Canelo threw a left hook. It didn't even look like that much power was on it. And then what's his name? Eddie Reynoso acts like he was hurt from it. You know what I'm saying? And again, you can tell when Canelo's throwing and landing harder hooks as opposed to when he's not. And then they're both joking around and things like that. As a Bushido boxing has primarily been focusing on. You guys go check his channel out. You know, I said this early on as well. I'm not really seeing the work. You know what I'm saying? When I'm seeing photo op shoots and things like that, it's really making me question. You know, now, as far as his little clips, you know, we'll see Ryan Garcia do the same thing like Canelo, where he can hit that type of bag, you know, and look cool and whatever else. But again, man, I look at the other pad work, I look at the other bag work and everything else. You know, it's too lax in my opinion. You're not focusing on the little things that you need to be focusing on. And you are dealing with a hitman, you know, whether this guy needs to snipe you from long range, whether, you know, he has something for you like a shotgun up close. You know, Crawford has the tools that he knows he's going to need for the job, you know, and his style is not really a style that you can get ready for, you know, regardless if you guys think the boots move was good or not. His style is more tailor fitted to the actual opponent that he fights. And this is something that a lot of people forget. Like, you know, when he fought Jeff Horn, you know, he fought Jeff Horn differently than when he fought other people. When he fought Postal, you saw the back foot game. When he fought Spence, you know, he sat there and he wanted to just, you know, he jabbed for the most part and whatever else, but he systematically took him out. You're seeing always different versions of Terrence Crawford. You know, the knockout punch, or one of the punches that sent Sean Porter to the floor, you know, again, Sean Porter, you know, you saw where he baited him in to a left hook uppercut. You know what I'm saying? The fact that he can even craft these types of things, you know, and this can come at any time during the fight. This is another thing people don't understand. And when we were talking about the Spence fights and whatever else, we talked about Spence's basic moveset, things like that. And, you know, I've been bringing up the point that this dude, Canelo, he's going to have to be more like a Julio Cesar Chavez in this fight. But we know he gets tired. And it goes back to the finishing and going back to power as well, guys. Like, okay, you heard him. Are you going to be able to finish him, especially if this fight goes past, you know, we start reaching rounds 9, 10, 11, 12. You know what I'm saying? Some of you're in my comment section, he's going to knock him out in the 10th round. We'll see, man. I've seen this dude, his gas tank, already be affected by the 4th round. We showed you this on film. You know, gas tank has always been a problem. And if he has to be more active, things like that, you know, Terrence Crawford is just a different story. He knows how to seize openings. He knows how to pick up, you know, where he can land a punch. And Canelo does have good defense. He's a solid fighter and things like that. But again, I just don't think he's what you guys make him out to be, you know. And I had the same conversation with the Spence fans, and it was always the same stuff. You haven't fought no one, whatever else. We're using the same lines, even for this fight. And if Canelo was like 5'10" or something, you know, if he was like 6 foot, I would be a little bit more concerned, but he is 5'8". As far as the athleticism, things like that, I think Crawford still, even as a 38-year-old, or however old he's going to be, I think he's still going to be 37, but he is eventually going to turn 38 very soon, shortly. I think he was born in September or something, late September. But, you know, I still think he's the more preserved fighter. Bernie and him, they say the man lives like a monk. Again, Canelo, different story. I've seen him party, and again, there's stories of him doing coke and things like that out there. So, again, I see the more slowdown from Canelo Alvarez. And if Bud can withstand like the first 5 rounds, you know, not get lulled to sleep during the fight, especially if he's winning and dominating, you know, you don't want to have a moment where you're caught slacking, because Canelo's whole game plan is wanting to land a KO blow, a hard shot at the end of the day. You know, he doesn't really put his punches together and things like that anymore. But you get past that 5 round, Canelo's going to start opening up more and more as the fight goes on, especially when if Crawford can get him to go to the ropes, just like a Floyd Mayweather did, who was smaller as well. You know what I'm saying? If he can make a miss, you know, not so much like Callum Smith and Bivol. Bivol, you know, he was strong enough to take those punches all night to his arm. With Crawford, you know, block some of them, but whenever you can and it's opportunistic, make him miss as well. He's just going to tire out even more. And you have seen later on in the fight that power starts to wear down. The speed, the force, everything. You know what I'm saying? The dude does gas. I'm sorry. You know, I think this is going to be one of those moments again. I do see it as a pretty good fight, first 6 rounds, but Again, if Crawford can get him beyond, into the back six, this is where Canelo's really going to have problems in this fight. This is where you're going to see Crawford's mental is on a whole different level than in Canelo Alvarez. Crawford can still play chess, and still make some very important moves later on in the fight, as well as the beginning. Canelo, I haven't really seen, himself really craft punches that his opponents, again, it's always a Gervonta Davis-like type and Deontay Wilder type approach where I can give up a bunch of rounds and I'll just, rely on power later on in the fight. But with Crawford, again, he's just going to continue to build, crescendo keeps rising all throughout the fight, and he's going to continue to exploit as the fight goes on. You know what I'm saying? And it's going to be from things in places you don't expect. And this is what I'm saying. It's all about the mental at the end of the day. I don't see Crawford really fazed by this event at all. It's good to see that he's still cold and calculated. This dude's a hitman. I know he's got a plan. I know they see some things that they want to focus on, and then they'll just see how it goes as the fight goes on again. And he'll still be mentally strong to pick up on that. As where Canelo, especially when he starts getting more frustrated, fatigued, and this is especially if they get into the back six again, Crawford is going to be the more stronger, more effective mental fighter as the fight goes on. And this is probably the biggest advantage that he has on Canelo, more so than his boxing IQ, more so than his punch selection, more so than his footwork and whatever else that we've covered on this channel. That's all I really got to say for now, guys. I will talk to you later. Bye.